Hello, my name is Matthew, and I'm reading Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh for our read-along that I'm doing with Steve Donahue and Shawn D. Standfast and anyone else that is reading along with us. Steve and Shawn and myself all made videos talking about the first quarter of the book last week. At this point, we've read up to the halfway point, and Steve's video talking about the beginning of the book was eye-opening, entertaining and interesting, but really clarified a lot of issues that I was having, getting myself into the spirit of the book and understanding what was happening. And Steve recounts action of events that are happening throughout the book that felt foggy for me. I didn't really understand what was happening. Characters aren't introduced in a normal way. The context, the time and the place aren't really explained. And so there was a lot of difficulty that I was having just understanding what was happening and who the principal characters are. And I'm really happy that I'm doing this read along with Steve and everyone else. It's really helped me understand and also enjoy the book. Something that I don't think I've mentioned yet is for all of the issues that I had at the beginning of the book, it was always beautifully written. There's just so many absolutely gorgeous passages, and it was one of the main things that carried me through the book was just how beautifully written it was, even if I didn't know what was happening. And Shawn D. Standfast made a terrific video talking a little bit more broadly about Brideshead Revisited, but also an element of reading in general, which is the issue of being confused while you're reading, when everything's not entirely explained to you. Brian from Bookish also made a whole video talking about books that are confusing. I'll try to remember to leave links to everyone's different videos. And Shawn articulated a really great point that I'm not sure I entirely understood at the beginning of Brideshead Revisited, which is we have this character, Charles. We meet him in the army, and he's going through this really dull training routines at this army base. And he happens upon Brideshead, this location that he had remembered from when he was younger. And the whole rest of the story, at least up until this point, is these remembrances of past events that this location has brought on him. And so the story that we're reading is Charles's recollections, and the literary device that Evelyn Waugh chose to implement is the authenticity in how one might remember their own events, meaning it wouldn't make sense to be introducing characters and explaining locations that you're remembering for yourself, because you already know all of these things, you know all of these people. And so it's this additional effect that I suppose Evelyn Waugh is using to give us this feeling of somebody remembering. I should point out, I think Shawn made a lot of really interesting points, and I pretty much agree with everything that he said, but it's a very different matter like Steve has read Brideshead Revisited and the whole of Evelyn Waugh several times over, and Shawn's read Brideshead Revisited and other Evelyn Waugh books multiple times as well. And so both of them have me at a disadvantage. I'm reading this for the first time, and the first quarter of the book that I had read, I don't know what's happening. I'm not giving Evelyn Waugh. I don't have the benefit of knowing the book as a whole, and so it becomes quite difficult to make a video, or to talk to a friend, or talk to somebody, or write a book report, if you're confused and you don't know the whole of the story. And as an example, a read-along that I did for the Karamazov brothers, I think it was the last read-along that I had on my little channel, I had read the Karamazov brothers three times before I read it for the read-along, and so I feel much more comfortable and confident talking about certain sections of the book because I had the advantage of knowing the book as a whole. If I was reading it for the first time, I would probably take a lot of issues with the long introduction of characters that Dostoevsky does at the beginning of the book. It's 200 pages introducing each character. Since I know all of the characters in the story in the book, I can kind of focus on other aspects of the book, which is something that I can't do for Brideshead Revisited. I haven't. Right now, I've only read half the book, so I still don't know how it's going to end. So I'll leave links to Steve's video and Shawn D. Standfast's video. They're both great. And if you've watched, if you've made videos, or if there's other Brideshead read-along videos, please let me know. I'd like to watch them. It'd be fun. It's interesting as I'm reading along, so please let me know. As far as the second quarter of the book, leading up to the halfway point, we have Charles is now spending time with his kind of hyper-rich friend Sebastian at Brideshead, and he's spending time in this idyllic place, and they are drinking wine and enjoying each other's company. Eventually, we meet other family members, the sisters. There's right around the quarter mark of the book. There's a trip to Venice, which I know Steve must just absolutely love. But one of the things that I started realizing from the other videos that I had watched, and also my continued reading, is a better understanding of the style of the book, and the tone, especially the tone of the book. The first big scene that really sold me on the book and made me really invested was the scene with Charles and his father, and we get this really strange, comedic, but also sad and menacing exchange between father and son. The father is bereaved, grief-stricken. The son is still rather feckless and irresponsible, but doesn't really understand consequences. And there's a back and forth with Charles wanting to get more money. And there's drinking and debauchery with Charles and his friends. And it felt more lighthearted than dark. And Sebastian is drinking and partying, and Charles is kind of along for the ride. And it's this life without it's the youth without consequences. He has all the money in the world, and we get this scene where they're going off to a party and they're going to um, a house party that someone the house is somebody that is fabulously wealthy. They have a high standing in society, all of those sorts of things. It's noted on their way to the party. It was still early. It was only midnight. So they're driving. Sebastian's driving. Are basically already drunk. They're already drunk when they arrive. They pick up these two girls while they're there and decide to drive off somewhere else. Sebastian, by the time they leave this party, is just smashed, and he's a menace. He's drunk and driving around the street, swerving into lanes, almost hitting cars. The women that are in the car are just in a total panic and scream for him to stop. He smashes the brake and they swerve off the road to a dead still stop. And the women just flee the car. And a police officer had been following them, a cop car, pulls right up next to them straight away, goes up to the window of the car. And Sebastian is just being so snobbish and foppish and demeaning and dismissing the cop. He even says, now, my good man, you can just you can go along. Just forget this whole incident ever happened. Imagine it went without notice, because you're obviously getting paid off by the rich house up the street, so we're leaving their house. So off you go now. He says, now, my good man. And it's great. Charles is sitting next to him, like, listening to this. He goes, yeah, after that, we're all in cells. So they just get, like, thrown into prison after this horrible exchange, and Sebastian's like crazy delusional version of how reality works. He just thinks that everything's just going to keep going along without consequences. The family has to bring in someone to get them out of jail. There's PR work being done because it's making the papers, and the different newspapers are having fun with the headlines, and it's like young fop can't handle his drink, or different things like that. And so Sebastian is embarrassed and also has scandalized the family. And then other things happen. Charles goes to France. He's spending time painting. Sebastian's romping around Europe. While all of this is happening, there are these moments where we have these really serious, interesting conversations of religion, Catholicism and Christianity, and I guess like the Church of England, and it was surprising to me that was included into the book. It very much feels like a major theme running throughout the book. Keeps coming up. Eventually, we have Charles coming back and spending time with Sebastian and Sebastian's family, and we get a whole picture of the rest of Sebastian's family. At this point, Charles is now a little bit more grown up. He's matured slightly. Mentions that he still drinks, but doesn't drink as much, and he still likes to enjoy a party, but he's not partying every night. In comparison to Sebastian, who's now out of control and drinking wildly, but self-destructively. It's described as a different kind of drinking, and Sebastian has another embarrassing drunken moment. The family now is getting together and trying to figure out what to do with Sebastian. Um, they can see that he's on this downward spiral, and for as funny as like a part with seeing the headlines and Sebastian's embarrassed, it really kind of hit how incredibly serious the subject is, but also how seriously um, the novel, or Evelyn Waugh, is treating this subject. Um, it's not just made for laughs. It's a person potentially ruining his life, and also potentially ruining the family, or the reputation or standing that the family has in society. Not to mention the risks and dangers that Sebastian, who's driving around everywhere drunk, can have on all the other drivers and bystanders. So we have these really tense moments where Charles is the guest in the Brideshead house, and they are trying to cut off Sebastian. They don't want him drinking anymore. Now, meanwhile, the family, really, like, aside from everything else, the one thing that they're not really helping him with is that they're all drinkers. Um, they're like scenes. It reminds me of scenes out of Mad Men, or that typical, stereotypical American 1950s kind of hard-boiled, strong drinkers. So the Brideshead family, practically every time they walk in the room, they want to have a drink. They have uh, special drinks before they get dressed. They'll have a cocktail hour. They'll have a drink before dinner. They'll have a drink during dinner. They'll have a drink after dinner. They'll have evening drinks, and it's just this whole variety, this whole barrage of wines and whiskeys and brandies and cocktail drinks. And while they're all sloshing these drinks down, the comment that they're making on Sebastian is like, why can't he just drink a certain level? Why can't he just drink as much as we're drinking? Meanwhile, to me, it seems like they're drinking an awful lot. It's a whole family of people that are perpetually drunk. Anyway, uh, they cut him off, and they're gonna. The mother, the matriarch of the family, tells all of the servants. They lock up all the liquor bottles. The wine's taken away, and Sebastian's in the house. At this point, he's secretly getting drunk. He's keeping flasks on him and having bottles hidden around the house. Um, really, really worrisome behavior. And so now he's like getting dressed and looking around for his um, wardrobe drink, his getting dressed drink, and the servant's not bringing anything. There's no cocktail hour. There's no drinks on the table where normally there'd be a decanter. He asks for a drink, and the matriarch um, nods her head, and they bring out 2 fingers of whiskey for him. The next day, they're going to go on this hunt, like a fox hunt or whatever it was, and the family is fairly happy about this. They go like, well, this is what he needs: a day's exercise. He'll be out there all day, and it's good. He'll start realizing that he needs to um, rein it in a little bit. So Charles and Sebastian are talking, and kind of Charles is saying to Sebastian, like, okay, well, you'll have your fox hunting tomorrow. And Sebastian says, I'm not going fox hunting. Because I'm going to get all dressed up, and I'm going, I'm going through the woods and going down the lane to this other town to go to this little bar, and I'm just going to get drunk all day long. And Charles says, well, you don't even have any money. And Sebastian asks him for money. Charles gives it to him. Gives him a pound or something. Sebastian says, well, I need more. Gives him another pound. So there's the day of the hunt. Everyone goes off. Everyone comes back except Sebastian. When he finally arrives, he does the same move that he's been doing throughout the book, standing there doing his best imitation of sobriety, but he's falling over drunk, bleary-eyed, slurring, can hardly keep himself up, and the whole family just sees straight away. He went off and got drunk all day. And the family sits down and they talk about it and said, well, what happened? He didn't have any money when he left. And the mother goes to Charles and says, did you give him money knowing what he was going to do? Charles says, yeah, he did. And he's been on really rough territory with Sebastian anyway. He's a guest in this house. The family, the mother just says, this is unforgivable. We're trying to help him, and you knew what he was going to do. And Charles is basically asked to leave or tossed out of the house. There's a train coming. I'm not talking about the book. There's a train about to come down the tracks. So I'm going to start wrapping up because I don't know if the audio will pick it up, but I live right on the train tracks. Much more enjoyable, much more serious. It's coming. Can you hear the train coming? So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Steve has to say, and if Shawn has, hopefully Shawn will be making more videos. Here it comes. Yeah, I'll thank you for watching, and I'll just wait. Can you hear the train? Okay. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you would like, and take care. Bye. I'll turn the camera around. I don't think I caught it. Okay, thank you.